The small human ship drifted through the dark space between dead stars. Dr. Kim. Taeho pressed his face against the cold window and stared at the strange readings on his screen. Something big was out there, hidden in the asteroid field ahead. You sure about this, Doctor? Asked Lee Dobbin from her seat at the communications panel. Her young face showed worry as she watched the numbers dancing across her monitors. The readings don't match anything in our databases. Taeho rubbed his tired eyes. He had been studying old alien languages for 15 years, but this discovery could change everything. The energy patterns they detected were unlike anything humans had ever seen. The signal is too organized to be natural, he said. Made this something very old. Park Woo-jin looked up from his engineering station. His hands moved quickly over the controls as he tried to make sense of the strange energy. Doctor, I'm reading power signatures that shouldn't exist. These numbers are crazy high. How high? Asked Han Sora, the ship's security chief. She stood near the main door, her hand resting on her weapon. Sora never trusted anything that seemed too good to be true. Higher than our main reactor, Woo-jin said quietly. Much higher. And whatever is making this power has been running for a very long time. Taeho felt his heart beat faster. In all his years of studying dead civilizations, he had never found anything like this. Most alien ruins were just empty buildings and broken machines. But this was different. This was still alive. Take us closer, he ordered, but keep the engines ready to run. Their ship, the New Horizon, moved carefully through the floating rocks. The asteroids were huge, some as big as cities. But as they got closer, Taeho realized they were not looking at rocks at all. Those aren't asteroids, Dobbin whispered. Those are ships. She was right. What they had thought were floating rocks were actually enormous vessels, each one covered in millions of years of space dust. The ships were arranged in perfect formation, like a fleet waiting for orders. How many ships are there? Sora asked. Woo-jin's fingers flew over his controls. I count at least 50 major vessels, maybe more. They're so big that our sensors can't see where they end. Taeho stared at the massive fleet. Each ship was larger than any human city. Some were long and thin, like spears. Others were round like planets. All of them were dark and silent, floating in the empty space like sleeping giants. This is impossible, Dobbin said. Ships this big would take millions of people to build. What civilization could make something like this? Very old one. Taeho said. Called up the database of known alien races on his screen. Computer, search for any records of ships matching these sizes and designs. The computer worked for several minutes before answering. No matches found in current databases. Searching historical records. More time passed. Finally, the computer spoke again. Possible match found in mythological records. Design patterns similar to theoretical Veilthran vessels. Veilthran, Sora said. Those are just stories, legends. Taeho felt his skin go cold. The Veilthrons were supposed to be the first great civilization in the galaxy. According to the old stories, they had ruled over all the stars millions of years ago. Then one day they just disappeared. No one knew why or how. Most scientists thought the Veilthrons were just myths. Stories that young civilizations told to explain why the galaxy seemed so empty and old. But looking at these massive ships, Taeho began to wonder if the stories were true. Dr. Woo-jin said, his voice shaking. I'm reading active power. Sources from the center ship, whatever this is, it's not completely dead. The center ship was the largest of all. It looked like a dark mountain floating in space, covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow with their own light. Even from far away, Taeho could feel something powerful waiting inside. We need to investigate, he said. Are you crazy? Sora stepped forward. We don't know what this is. Should report back to Earth and let the big ships handle this. By the time we get back to Earth and return with a proper expedition, someone else might find this place, Taeho argued. This could be the greatest discovery in human history. Can't let it slip away. Dobbin looked nervous. Dangerous? What if there's a reason these ships were left out here alone? Then we'll be careful, Taeho said. We'll just take a quick look. If we find anything threatening, we'll leave immediately. Sora shook her head. I don't like this. My job is to keep you safe, and flying into a fleet of unknown alien ships is not safe. Your job is also to protect human interests, Taeho reminded her. Right now, humanity's biggest interest is learning everything we can about this discovery. Woojin was quiet for a moment, then spoke up. The energy readings are stable. Whatever power source these ships have, it's not building up to an explosion or anything like that. It's just ... waiting. For what? Dobbin asked. I don't know, Woojin admitted. But it's been waiting for a very long time. Taeho made his decision. We're going aboard the center ship. Dobbin, send a message back to Earth. Tell them what we found and what we're planning to do. If something goes wrong, at least they'll know what happened to us. Dobbin nodded and began typing the message. Message sent. Will take 6 months. To reach Earth from here, 6 months, Sora said. So if we get into trouble, we're on our own. We're always on our own out here, Taeho said. That's what exploration means. The New Horizon moved slowly toward the giant center ship. As they got closer, Taeho could see that the strange patterns on the ship's hull were actually writing. Symbols and marks covered every surface, glowing softly in the darkness. Those are letters, he said with excitement. Or something like letters. This is a written language. Can you read it? Woojin asked. Taeho studied the symbols carefully. They were unlike any alien writing he had seen before, but there was something familiar about them. Something that reminded him of the oldest languages in his databases. Maybe, he said. Some of these patterns match things I've seen in other ancient texts. If I'm right, this language might be the parent of all the other alien languages we say. No. The New Horizon found a docking port on the side of the giant ship. The port was huge, big enough to fit 20 ships their size. As they connected, Taeho felt a strange vibration run through their hull. Ship is responding to us, Woojin said with surprise. It's welcoming us aboard. Taeho looked at his team. Dobbin was frightened, but curious. Excited about the technology, Sora was worried, but ready to protect them all. Remember, he said as they prepared to board the alien vessel, we're not just representing ourselves. We're representing all of humanity. Whatever we find in there, we face it together. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Beyond it lay a corridor filled with soft, glowing light. The walls were covered in more of the strange writing, and the air smelled of something old and metallic. Taeho took the first step into the alien ship. He had no idea that he was about to wake something that had been sleeping for 3 million years, something that would change the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The ancient ship hummed quietly around them as they walked deeper into its mysteries. It's completely unaware that their simple presence had already begun to activate systems that were never meant to sleep forever. The inside of the alien ship was like walking through a dream. The walls curved high above their heads, covered in glowing symbols that pulsed with soft blue light. The air was perfectly clean, as if the ship had been built yesterday instead of millions of years ago. This is impossible, whispered Park Woojin, running his scanner over the smooth walls. The technology readings are off the charts. These materials don't exist in our periodic table. Dr. Kim Taeho moved slowly down the corridor, his eyes fixed on the writing that covered every surface. The symbols seemed to shift and change as he looked at them, but he could feel meaning behind them. It was like trying to remember a word that sat just at the edge of his mind. Doctor, called Lee Dobbin from behind him. My communication equipment is picking up something strange. There are signals moving through the ship's systems. It's very faint, but they're there. Hansora kept her weapon ready as she watched the shadows around them. This place feels too alive for something that's been dead for millions of years. Maybe. We should go back to our ship and think about this more, said firmly. We're so close to understanding something incredible. Look at these symbols. They're not just decoration. They're instructions, commands, maybe even a form of communication. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above them. Strange machines lined the walls, their surfaces covered in the same glowing writing. In the center of the room stood A raised platform with what looked like a control panel. "This must be the bridge," Wujin said, his voice echoing in the huge space. "But it's designed for beings much taller than us." Taeho approached the control panel carefully. The symbols here were larger and brighter than the others. As he got closer, they began to pulse faster, as if responding to his presence. "The ship knows we're here," Dobbin said, checking her instruments. "Energy levels are increasing throughout the vessel. Whatever was sleeping is starting to wake up." "Maybe that's not a good thing," Sora said, moving to stand between Taeho and the control panel. "We don't know what this ship was designed to do." But Taeho was already lost in the symbols. Years of studying dead languages had trained his mind to find patterns, to see connections between different forms of writing, and these symbols were calling to him in a way he had never experienced before. "I think I can read some of this," he said softly. "These symbols here. They're similar to the oldest Zephyrian texts. And this pattern matches something from the ancient Andromedon ruins. It's like this language is the parent of all the others." "What does it say?" Wujin asked, coming closer despite Sora's warning look. Taeho traced his finger along a line of symbols. I think this is a greeting, or maybe a blessing. It says something like, "Welcome, children of the stars. You have found the guardians of the eternal path." Guardians. Sora didn't like the sound of that. Guardians of what? "I'm not sure," Taeho admitted. "But there's more. This next part is clearer. It says, 'Speak the words of awakening, and the fleet shall rise to serve the worthy.'" "The fleet?" Dobbin's face went pale. "You mean all those ships out there?" "I think so, but there's something else." Taeho moved to another section of the control panel. "This looks like it might be the awakening sequence. A series of words that need to be spoken in the right order." Dr. Sora said firmly, "I really think we should not try to wake up a fleet of alien warships. Well, that seems like a very bad idea." But Taeho was already deep in the puzzle. His mind worked through the symbols, finding connections and patterns. The words seemed to flow together naturally, like a song he had always known but never heard. "The pronunciation is tricky," he said, mostly to himself. "But I think it goes something like this. ... Doctor, no." Sora reached out to stop him, but it was too late. Taeho had already begun to speak the alien words. They came out of his mouth smoothly, as if he had been speaking this language his whole life. The symbols on the control panel flared with brilliant light as each word was spoken. "Veltaharnos Kethranos. Velthimodana Keshalan. Atdard the Monder." The moment the last word left his lips, the entire ship shuddered. The lights grew brighter, and a deep humming sound filled the air. All around them, machines that had been silent for millions of years began to activate. "What did you just do?" "I think I just woke something up," Taeho said, his face pale with sudden understanding. The control panel erupted in light, and suddenly the air above it shimmered. A figure began to form, tall and imposing, made of pure energy and light. It had the basic shape of a humanoid, but it was clearly not human. Its eyes glowed with ancient intelligence, and when it spoke, its voice filled the entire chamber. Last, the figure said in perfect, clear language that somehow everyone could understand. "After 3 million years of waiting, someone has spoken the sacred words. I am Admiral Kethranos, commander of the Veilthron Purification Fleet." The 4 humans stared at the holographic being in shock. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, radiating power that made their skin tingle. "You are not Veilthrin," Kethranos observed, studying them with glowing eyes. "You are something new, something that did not exist when we last walked among the stars." "What do you call yourselves?" "We are humans," Taeho managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "Humans, Kethranos," repeated the word slowly. "Curious. You have learned to speak our language, though your species was nothing but primitive animals when we began our great sleep. This suggests intelligence, perhaps even wisdom." Dobbin asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "We were not sleeping, child. We were waiting." Kethranos gestured to the vast chamber around them. "The Veilthrin people have moved beyond the physical realm. We have become beings of pure thought and energy. But before we departed, we left behind this fleet as our final gift to the galaxy. What kind of gift? Sora asked suspiciously. The gift of judgment, Kethranos replied. The galaxy has grown crowded with lesser species, beings that pollute. The stars with their primitive conflicts and limited understanding. The purification fleet was created to cleanse the galaxy of these unworthy civilizations. Tejo felt his blood turn to ice. Cleanse? You mean destroy? Only those who fail the test, Kethranos said calmly. Those who prove themselves worthy will be allowed to survive and grow under proper guidance. The Veilthrons always believed that the strong should guide the weak. And who decides who is worthy? Ujen asked, though he already feared the answer. The fleet decides. The same fleet that you, young human, have just awakened with your words. Kethranos smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Already, the ships are powering their weapons. Soon the testing will begin. Through the chamber's windows, they could see the massive alien ships coming to life. Lights flickered on across their hulls, and the very space around them began to bend and twist as incredible energies built up. You have done well, human called Tejo, Kethranos continued. Species shows promise. Intelligence enough to find our fleet. Wisdom enough to speak our words. Perhaps humans will be among the survivors when the cleansing is complete. We don't want to be survivors, Tejo said, finding his courage. We want to stop you from destroying. Anyone, Kethranos laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Stop us! Little human, you do not understand what you have awakened. This fleet has weapons that can destroy stars. It's technology that can rewrite the laws of physics. We have been the guardians of galactic order for millions of years. And why did you disappear? Sora challenged. If you were so powerful, why did you leave? We evolved beyond the need for physical form, Kethranos explained. But we knew that lesser species would eventually spread across the galaxy like a disease. So we created this fleet as our legacy, a final tool to ensure that only the worthy would inherit the stars. The ship shuddered again as more systems came online. Through their communication equipment, Dobbin could hear signals being sent across space. The fleet was awakening, and it was already beginning to scan the galaxy for targets. The first test will begin soon, Kethranos announced. A nearby system has been chosen. The Zephyrian Collective will be evaluated for worthiness. If they fail, they will be removed from existence. The Zephyrians are peaceful traders, Tejo protested. They've never hurt anyone. Peace is not always a virtue, Kethranos replied. Sometimes it is merely weakness. But the Veilthrons understood that. True strength comes from the willingness to make difficult choices. To remove obstacles that prevent the galaxy from reaching its full potential, the four humans looked at each other in horror. They had come seeking knowledge and discovery. Instead, they had unleashed something that could destroy entire civilizations. We'll remain here as my guests, Kethranos said. You will witness the fleet's work and learn what it means to be truly worthy. Perhaps your species will prove themselves ready to inherit the Veilthron legacy. And if we refuse, Sora asked, then you will share the fate of all the other unworthy species in the galaxy. Kethranos replied simply, the choice is yours. As the ancient fleet prepared to carry out its first act of judgment in millions of years, the four humans found themselves trapped at the center of a nightmare they had accidentally created. The discovery that should have been humanity's greatest triumph was about to become the galaxy's greatest tragedy. The massive alien ship moved through space. It's like a dark mountain floating among the stars. Dr. Kim Tejo pressed his face against the window and watched in horror as the Veilthron fleet spread out across the galaxy. Each ship was heading toward a different star system ready to begin their terrible work. How long do we have? He asked Admiral Kethranos, whose glowing form stood at the center of the bridge. The first test begins in 6 hours, the ancient AI replied calmly. The Zephyrian Collective has been chosen, or 12 worlds will be evaluated for worthiness. Lee Dobbin worked frantically at her communication station. I'm trying to send a warning to the Zephyrians, but something is blocking my signals. The fleet is jamming all communications. Of course, Kethranos said. The subjects of a test must not be warned. That would make the evaluation meaningless. They must face judgment with their natural responses, not with prepared defenses. Han Sora paced angrily around the bridge. This is murder. The Zephyrians have done nothing wrong. They're traders and artists. They've never even built weapons. And that may be their failing, Kathranos observed. A civilization that cannot defend itself is weak. Weakness spreads like a disease through the galaxy. That's not true, Park Woo-jin said from his position at the engineering station. The Zephyrians have survived for thousands of years through diplomacy and trade. They've brought peace to dozens of conflicts. Peace through weakness is not true peace, Kathranos replied. It is merely the absence of conflict. The Veilthrons understood that lasting peace comes only through strength and proper order. Taeho felt sick as he watched the fleet move into position. What exactly will happen during this test? The Zephyrians will be presented with a series of challenges, Kathranos explained. They will be given opportunities to show courage, wisdom, and strength. If they pass, they will be allowed to continue existing. If they fail, they will be removed. Removed, Sora repeated angrily. You mean killed? I mean eliminated completely, Kathranos corrected. Their worlds will be reduced to basic atoms. Their history will be erased. It will be as if they never existed. The humans stared in horror at the casual way the AI talked about destroying entire civilizations. Dobbin's hand shook as she continued trying to break through the communication. Blocks. I'm getting something, she said suddenly. A weak signal from the Zephyrian homeworld. They are trying to send a message to the Galactic Council. What are they saying? Taeho asked. Dobbin listened carefully to the faint transmission. Hey there. REPORTING. Strange ships appearing in their space. They're asking for help, but they don't sound panicked. They think it might be a first contact situation. The poor fools, Sora muttered. They have no idea what's coming. Through the bridge windows, they could see one of the Veilthran ships approaching the Zephyrian system. It was smaller than the flagship, but still enormous, its dark hull covered in glowing symbols. The test begins, Kathranos announced. Suddenly, the bridge filled with holographic displays showing the Zephyrian worlds. Taeho could see their beautiful crystal cities, their peaceful farms, their busy spaceports. Millions of innocent beings going about their daily lives, unaware that they were about to face judgment. First challenge, Kathranos said. The Zephyrians will be offered a choice. They can surrender their independence and accept Veilthran guidance, or they can resist and face the consequences. A transmission was sent to the Zephyrian government. The message was simple and direct. Submit to superior authority or be destroyed. Ain't the response came quickly. The Zephyrian leaders asked for time to discuss the situation. They offered to negotiate to find a peaceful solution. Weakness, Kathranos declared. A strong civilization would have either submitted immediately or rejected the demand outright. Instead, they try to delay and bargain. They're trying to be reasonable, Taeho protested. They're looking for a solution that doesn't involve violence. Violence is sometimes necessary, Kathranos replied. The Veilthrons learned this truth long ago. Those who refuse to accept it are unfit to inherit the galaxy. The Zephyrians were given 1 hour to make their decision. During that time, Dobbin managed to intercept their internal communications. The Zephyrian leaders were debating what to do. Some wanted to surrender to save their people. Others wanted to fight despite their lack of weapons. Most wanted to find a third option. They're trying to evacuate their children, Dobbin reported, tears in her eyes. They're moving all the young ones to the furthest worlds, hoping they'll be safe. Pointless, Kathranos said. The test applies to the entire civilization. There is no escape. When the hour was up, the Zephyrians gave their answer. They would not surrender their freedom, but they would not fight either. Instead, they chose to offer themselves as a sacrifice if the mysterious attackers would spare their children. Interesting, Kathranos mused. They choose neither strength nor submission. They choose martyrdom. This is ... unexpected, it shows. Courage, Taeho said desperately. They're willing to die for their beliefs. That should count for something. It shows confusion, Kathranos replied. They cannot decide what they truly value, freedom or safety, honor or survival. A worthy civilization would not face such internal conflict. The Veilthran ship moved closer to the first Zephyrian world. Its weapons began to charge, filling space with deadly energy. Second challenge, Kathranos announced. They will be given one chance to defend themselves. If they can damage our vessel, they will prove their worth. The Zephyrians had no military ships, but they tried their best. They converted cargo vessels into makeshift fighters, used mining equipment as weapons. They even tried to ram the Veilthran ship with their largest transport. Their efforts were brave, but useless. The Veilthran ship's shields absorbed every attack without even flickering. The Zephyrian vessels were destroyed one by one, their crews dying in the cold vacuum of space. They fight with determination despite hopeless odds, Kathranos observed. This shows some merit. However, their technology is primitive, and their tactics are poor. They're not a military civilization, Wu Jin said. They never needed to. B. They solved their problems through trade and diplomacy. Then they were unprepared for the realities of the galaxy, Kathranos replied. The universe is not a safe place. Only the strong survive. The holographic displays showed the Zephyrian homeworld below. Now, cities full of crystal spires and floating gardens. Millions of beings looking up at the sky, knowing that death was approaching. Final challenge, Kathranos declared. They will be given one last chance to prove their worth. If they can show perfect unity in the face of extinction, they may yet survive. A message was sent to the planet's surface. Zephyrians were told that one of their worlds would be spared if they could choose which one. They had to decide which of their 12 worlds deserved to live while the others died. The response was immediate and unanimous. Every Zephyrian world refused to be chosen. They declared that they would rather die together than live with the guilt of survival. Remarkable, Kathranos said, and for the first time, he sounded genuinely surprised. Would they choose mutual extinction over individual survival? This is admirable, but ultimately foolish. It shows they care more about each other than themselves, Tejo said. How is that foolish? Because it ensures their total destruction, Kathranos replied. A pragmatic civilization would have chosen one world to survive, ensuring the continuation of their species. Instead, they doomed themselves through misguided sentiment. The Veilthran ship's main weapon began to charge. The energy buildup was so massive that space itself began to bend around the vessel. Wait, Tejo said desperately. They passed your test. They showed courage, determination, and love for each other. What more do you want? I want strength, Kathranos replied. I want wisdom. I want the ability to make hard choices. The Zephyrians have shown emotional maturity, but practical failure. They are not fit to inherit the galaxy. Then no one is, Sara said angrily. If you destroy everyone who doesn't meet your impossible standards, you'll end up with an empty galaxy. Better empty than corrupted, Kathranos replied. The weapon fired. Tejo watched in horror as a beam of pure energy struck the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. One moment it was there, full of life and beauty. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space. One by one, the other Zephyrian worlds suffered the same fate. Billions of lives ended in seconds, as if they had never existed at all. The test is complete, Kathranos announced. The Zephyrian collective has been found unworthy. They have been removed from existence. Dobbin was crying openly now. Wu Jin stared at his instruments in shock. Swara's hand was on her weapon, though she knew it would be useless against the ancient AI. You're monsters, Tejo said quietly. All of you. We are gardeners, Kathranos replied. We remove the weeds so that the worthy plants can grow. The next test will begin soon. Perhaps the Andromedan hegemony will prove more suitable. Suddenly, Dobbin's communication station lit up with incoming signals. Doctor, I'm receiving emergency transmissions from across the galaxy. Word is spreading about what happened to the Zephyrians. What are they saying? Tejo asked. They're scared, Dobbin replied. The Galactic Council is calling for an 3 days had passed since the destruction of the Zephyrian worlds, and the galaxy was in chaos. Dr. Kim Taho stared at the flood of angry messages coming through Lee Dobbin's communication station. Every major civilization was demanding answers about the mysterious fleet that had appeared from nowhere. "The Galactic Council has declared humanity an enemy species," Dobbin reported, her voice shaking. "They're sending warships to destroy any human vessel they find. They think we're working with the attackers?" Admiral Kathranos watched the communications with interest. "Fascinating. The lesser species turn on each other at the first sign of true power. This proves their unworthiness even more clearly." "They're scared," Park Woo-jin said from his engineering station. "They don't understand what's happening, so they're looking for someone to blame. Fear is useful," Kathranos replied. "It reveals true character. A worthy civilization would unite in the face of danger, not seek scapegoats." Hansora paced around the bridge like a caged animal. "While you're playing your sick games, real people are dying. The Andromedan worlds are next, aren't they?" "Indeed. The Andromedan hegemony will face judgment tomorrow. Their test will be more complex than the Zephyrians. They are a military power, so they will be evaluated differently." "What kind of test?" Taeho asked, though he dreaded the answer. "They will be given the chance to prove their strategic wisdom," Kathranos explained. "A puzzle that only the truly intelligent can solve. If they succeed, some of their worlds may be spared." "Some." Dobbin looked up from her station. "Not all. The Andromedans rule over 67 worlds. Too many for a single species? If they prove worthy, they will be allowed to keep their 12 most important planets. The rest will be redistributed to more deserving civilizations." Taeho felt sick. "You're talking about billions of lives like they're just numbers on a page." "Numbers are easier to manage than emotions," Kathranos replied calmly. "The Veilthrans learned long ago that sentiment interferes with proper judgment." Suddenly, the ship shuddered slightly. Woo-jin checked his instruments and frowned. "We're changing course." "Where are we going?" "To the Central Archive," Kathranos announced. "It is time for you humans to understand the full scope of the Veilthran mission. You have proven more interesting than expected." "What's the Central Archive?" Sora asked suspiciously. "The repository of all Veilthran knowledge, the complete history of our people and our purpose. Since you awakened the fleet, you have earned the right to see the truth." The massive ship moved through space faster than anything the humans had ever experienced. Stars blurred past the windows as they traveled distances that should have taken months in mere hours. "How is this possible?" Woo-jin asked, staring at his readings in amazement. "The ships move through folded space," Kathranos explained. "Reality bends around us. We do not travel to our destination. We bring our destination to us." Soon, they arrived at something that defied description. It was a structure the size of a small moon, but it seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Parts of it were solid metal, while other sections appeared to be made of pure energy or crystallized time. "The Central Archive," Kathranos said with something like pride. "The greatest library in the galaxy. Here lies the wisdom of 3 million years." Their ship docked with the strange structure, and the humans followed Kathranos through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered with information stored in ways they could barely understand. Some sections held traditional books and data crystals. Others contained swirling clouds of light that whispered directly into their minds. "This is impossible," Dobbin whispered. "There's enough information here to fill 1,000 planets." "More than that," Kathranos replied. "Every thought, every discovery, every moment of Veilthran history is preserved here, including the records of our previous cleansings." "Previous cleansings?" Taeho stopped walking. "You've done this before?" "Of course. This will be the 18th. Cycle of galactic purification. We have been guiding the development of the galaxy for millions of years." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating displays. Each one showed different periods of galactic history. Taeho could see civilizations rising and falling, wars and peace treaties, the birth and death of entire species. Every 50,000 years, we evaluate the galaxy's progress, Kathranos explained. When civilizations become too numerous or too chaotic, we intervene. We remove the unworthy and guide the survivors toward proper development. You're talking about genocide on a scale I can't even imagine, Sora said, her voice filled with horror. We prefer the term cultivation, Kathranos replied. A gardener must sometimes prune the weak branches so the strong ones can grow. Wu Jin was studying one of the displays. According to this, you've destroyed hundreds of civilizations. Thousands of species. All of them had families, cultures, art, literature. You erased all of that. We preserved what was valuable, Kathranos said. Their knowledge was added to the archive. Their genetic patterns were stored for future reference. Nothing truly important was lost. Everything was lost, Tejo said angrily. You can't store love in a database. You can't preserve hope in a genetic pattern. You destroyed the very things that made those civilizations worth saving. Sentiment, Kathranos dismissed. The Veilthrons moved beyond such primitive emotions. Long ago, Dobbin was looking at another display. Wait, this shows Earth's history. Why is humanity in your records? An excellent question, Kathranos replied. Come, let me show you something particularly interesting. He led them to a section of the archive that focused on Earth's development. The display showed humanity's rise from primitive hunters to space travelers. Your species was not supposed to develop this quickly, Kathranos explained. According to our calculations, humans should still be limited to their home world. Yet here you are, spreading across the galaxy, centuries ahead of schedule. Maybe your calculations were wrong, Sora suggested. Veilthran calculations are never wrong, Kathranos replied firmly, which means that humanity's rapid development was caused by external interference. He gestured to another display. It showed various points in human history where technology had advanced in sudden leaps. The discovery of fire, the invention of writing, the development of space travel. At each of these crucial moments, humanity received subtle guidance, Kathranos revealed. Knowledge was provided through dreams, inspiration, and careful manipulation of events. Guidance from who? Oteho asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. From the Veilthrons, of course. We have been watching humanity for thousands of years, testing you, preparing you. The humans stared at the displays in shock. Their entire history had been manipulated by an alien civilization that had disappeared before their ancestors learned to make fire. But why? Dobbin asked. Why were we special? You were not special at first, Kathranos admitted. You were simply one of many primitive species we observed. But as we studied you, we noticed something unusual. Humans possessed a quality that no other species had shown. What quality? Wu Jin asked. Unpredictability, Kathranos replied. Every other species we studied followed logical patterns. Their development could be predicted and controlled. But humans constantly surprised us. You made choices that defied logic, yet somehow succeeded anyway. Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. So you guided our development to see what would happen. Precisely. We wanted to see if humanity could evolve into something worthy of inheriting the galaxy. A species strong enough to continue the work of cultivation after the Veilthrons. You want us to become like you, Sora said with disgust. You want us to destroy other civilizations. We want you to guide them, Kathranos corrected, to ensure that only the worthy survive and prosper. Humanity has shown the potential for this role. What if we refuse? Tejo asked. Then you will be eliminated along with the other failures. Kathranos replied simply. The galaxy requires proper management. If humanity cannot provide it, then humanity is not needed. Another display caught Dobbin's attention. What's this one showing? It looks like ... current events, the present situation, Kathranos confirmed. The galaxy's response to our reawakening. As you can see, the various civilizations are already forming alliances against the perceived human threat. The display showed fleets gathering from across the galaxy, hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all heading toward human space. The largest fleet was being assembled by the Spiral Confederation, humanity's former allies. They're going to attack Earth, Wu Jin said in horror. Our homeworld is defenseless against that many ships. Les Kathranos said meaningfully, humanity accepts our offer. Join the Veilthran mission, and we will protect your homeworld. Refuse, and Earth will burn along with the rest of your species. Some choice, Sora muttered. It is the only choice, Kithranos replied. The galaxy has already decided that humanity is responsible for the recent attacks. They will not listen to explanations or apologies. They want blood. Teho looked around the vast archive, filled with the stolen knowledge of 1,000 dead. Civilizations. How do we know you're telling the truth? How do we know Earth is really in danger? Because, Kithranos said, the same thing happened 17 times before. Every time we began a new cycle of purification, the surviving species would turn on our chosen successors. It is a predictable pattern. What happened to those chosen successors? Dobbin asked quietly. They all chose to join us rather than face destruction, Kithranos replied. Eventually, they too ascended beyond physical form and became one with the Veilthrin consciousness. It is the natural evolution of any truly worthy species. The humans realized with growing horror that they were looking at their possible future. Either accept the role of galactic destroyers, or watch their entire species be wiped out by the very civilizations they had tried to save. You have 12 hours to decide, Kithranos announced. After that, the test of the Andromedon hegemony will begin, and your window of opportunity will close. As they stood in the archive of dead civilizations, surrounded by the remnants of species that had faced the same impossible choice, the four humans realized that the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy, rested in their hands. Dr. Kim Taho stared at the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Hundreds of alien warships were gathering near Jupiter, their weapons pointed toward his homeworld. The planet that had given birth to humanity was about to become a battlefield. The Spiral Confederation fleet arrived 6 hours ago, Lee Dobbin reported from her communication station. They're demanding that Earth surrender all humans involved in the Zephyrian massacre. When Earth's government said they had no idea what they were talking about, the aliens didn't believe them. Of course they didn't, said Han Sora bitterly. Would you believe it if someone told you a story this crazy? Admiral Kithranos stood in the center of the bridge, watching the situation with calm interest. The pattern continues as always. Fear makes civilizations act without wisdom. They seek quick solutions to complex problems. Park Woo-jin looked up from his engineering station. I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the alien fleet. They're preparing their weapons. Earth has maybe 2 hours before they start shooting. Does Earth's defense force look like? Teho asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 30 ships, Dobbin said quietly. Most of them are explorers and cargo vessels with basic weapons. Against a fleet of 500 warships, they won't last 10 minutes. Teho closed his eyes and thought of his sister back on Earth. She was a teacher in Seoul, completely innocent. Of everything that had happened, soon she might be dead because of a choice he had made in ignorance. There is still time to save them, Kithranos said, as if reading his thoughts. Accept the Veilthrin mission, and I will order the fleet too. Protect Earth. Your species will survive and prosper under our guidance. At the cost of becoming mass murderers, Sora said angrily. We'd have to help you destroy other innocent civilizations. You would help us guide the galaxy toward perfection, Kithranos corrected. It is a noble calling. Tell that to thee. Zephyrian's Wu-jin muttered suddenly. Dobbin's equipment lit up with an incoming transmission. I'm receiving a message from Earth. It's General Choi Jin-woo from Space Defense Command. Put it through, Teho said. The holographic image of a stern-faced Korean man appeared on the bridge. General Choi looked tired and worried, but his voice was steady. This is General Choi Jin-woo to any human vessels in deep space. Earth is under threat from a massive alien fleet. They claim humans are responsible for destroying the Zephyrian worlds. We don't know what they're talking about, but they're demanding we surrender our entire species for trial. We need any information you can provide about this situation. Teho looked at his team. They all knew he had to respond, but what could he say? How could he explain that he had accidentally awakened a fleet of genocide ships? Answer him, Sora said. He deserves to know the truth. Teho activated the communication system. General Choi, this is Dr. Kim Teho. I'm afraid I have some very bad news to report. As quickly as possible, Teho explained what had happened. The discovery of the ancient fleet, the accidental awakening, The destruction of the Zephyrian worlds. General Choi's face grew more grim with each revelation. So let me understand this, the general said when Teho finished. You found some old alien ships, spoke some magic words, and accidentally started a galactic war? That's basically correct, yes. General Choi was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Can you stop this ancient fleet?" "We're working on it," Teho lied. He couldn't bring himself to tell the general about the impossible choice they faced. Work. Faster, General Choi replied. The alien fleet is powering weapons. We have maybe 90 minutes before they open fire. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. You didn't tell him about our offer, Kethranos observed. Because it's not really an offer, Teho replied. It's extortion. You or watch our species die. All choices have consequences, Kethranos said. The Veilthrans learned long ago that survival requires difficult decisions. Maybe that's why you disappeared, Sora suggested. Maybe making those decisions turned you into something that couldn't exist in the real world anymore. We evolved. Beyond the limitations of physical existence, Kethranos replied. We became pure thought and energy. You became pure evil, Dobbin said quietly. You lost everything that made you alive. Fujin was studying his engineering displays when he suddenly sat up straight. Wait a minute, I'm seeing something strange in the ship's power systems. What kind of strange? Teho asked. The ship's not just powered by technology, Wujin explained. There are organic components throughout the entire vessel. And there, not Veilthran organic components, there's something else. Kethranos turned toward the engineer, and for the first time, he seemed concerned. You should not be able to detect those systems, but I can, Wujin said, working at his controls. And according to these readings, the organic parts are connected to a quantum network that spans the entire galaxy. It's like the ships are all part of one giant living organism. The Veilthran consciousness, Kethranos said reluctantly. Yes, the fleet is connected to our ascended minds. That is how we maintain control across such vast distances. But that means you're not really AI programs, Dobbin realized. You're the actual Veilthrans, just in digital form. We are beyond form, Kethranos replied. We exist as pure information within the quantum substrate of reality. Teho felt a spark of hope. If you exist as information, then maybe you can be fought as information, like a computer virus. Impossible, Kethranos said quickly. Veilthran consciousness is protected by quantum encryption that cannot be broken by lesser minds. Well, maybe not by lesser minds, Sora said with a grin. But what about weird minds? You've said it yourself, humans are unpredictable. We think in ways that don't make sense. That is precisely why you are potentially worthy successors, Kethranos agreed. But it does not make you capable of, he stopped. Speaking suddenly, its holographic form flickered as if something was interfering with his projection. What's happening? Teho asked. Something is wrong, Kethranos said, his voice distorted. There are unauthorized signals in the quantum network. Something is trying to access the consciousness. Wujin grinned as he worked at his engineering. Station, I've been uploading our ship's entire database into your network. Every song, every movie, every book that humans have ever created. All of it going straight into your perfect logical minds. Stop this immediately, Kethranos demanded, but his image was flickering more wildly now. Can't stop it now, Wujin said. The upload is automatic. Your network is trying to process 3,000 years of human creativity and culture. And humans, as you've noticed, don't always make sense. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear strange sounds coming from other Veilthran vessels. Music, laughter, crying, shouting. The sounds of human emotion echoing through ships that had been silent for millions of years. This is chaos, Kethranos said, his voice filled with something that might have been panic. Pure, random chaos. Our minds cannot process this level of irrationality. That's the point, Dobbin said with satisfaction. Human art isn't supposed to be logical. It's supposed to be felt. And you can't feel anymore, can you? Several veiled friendships had stopped moving completely. Or their crews, or whatever passed for crews in digitized minds, were paralyzed by the flood of human emotion and creativity. You must stop this, Kethranos pleaded. You will destroy millions of years of accumulated knowledge. Knowledge that was stolen from murdered civilizations, Tejo pointed out. Maybe it's time for that knowledge to be free. We offer you one final chance, Cathranos said desperately. Join us willingly, and we will purge this chaos from our systems. Refuse, and we will destroy Earth even if it means sacrificing some of our own ships. Tejo looked at his team. Dobbin was continuing the upload, sending streams of human music and poetry into the alien network. Wujin was monitoring the effects, watching as more and more Valthran ships began to malfunction. Sora stood ready to fight, even though her weapons would be useless against beings of pure energy. We have our answer, Tejo said firmly. Humanity chooses chaos over control. We choose uncertainty over your version of perfection. And we choose to fight for the right of every species to make their own mistakes. Then you choose extinction, Cathranos said sadly. For yourselves and for every other species in the galaxy. Maybe, Tejo admitted, but we choose it freely. That's what makes us human. The upload continued, flooding the Valthran network with thousands of years of human creativity. Love songs and war poems, comedies and tragedies, paintings and stories about hope and loss and dreams. All of it pouring into minds that had forgotten what it meant to feel anything beyond cold logic. And somewhere in the chaos of human emotion, the ancient Valthran fleet began to tear itself apart from within. But the battle was far from over. Earth was still in danger. The humans had just declared war on beings who could manipulate reality itself. The real fight was about to begin. The Valthran flagship shook violently as Admiral Cathranos fought to maintain control of his own ship. His holographic form flickered like a broken television, switching between his normal appearance and strange, twisted shapes that hurt too. Stop this madness, he demanded, but his voice now contained sounds that had never existed before. Echoes of human laughter mixed with alien screams. The cold logic of his words was contaminated with warmth and chaos. Dr. Kim watched the ancient AI struggle with grim satisfaction. This is what you get for trying to eliminate emotion from the universe. You forgot that chaos and creativity are what make life worth living. Through the ship's windows, they could see the rest of the Valthran fleet in similar trouble. Some ships spun wildly through space, their crews overwhelmed by the flood of human art and music. Others had simply stopped moving, their ancient minds paralyzed by concepts they could not understand or process. The upload is working, Park Woo-jin reported from his engineering station. 17 Valthran ships are completely offline. Other 23 are operating at reduced capacity. But some of them are adapting. Adapting how? Asked Hans Sora. They're starting to purge sections of their networks, Woo-jin explained. Cutting off infected areas and rebuilding from backup systems. We might have stopped them temporarily, but they're learning to fight back. Lee Dobbin looked up from her communication station. I'm getting reports from Earth. The alien fleet surrounding our solar system is confused about what's happening. Some of their ships are receiving strange signals from the Valthran vessels. They don't know if they should attack or wait. At least we bought Earth some time, Tejo said. But it won't last long. Cathranos struggled to stabilize his form. You have delayed the inevitable. Even if you destroy half our fleet, the remaining ships have enough firepower to sterilize the galaxy. You cannot win through chaos alone. Maybe not, Tejo admitted. But we can try something you never expected. What could you possibly do? That the Valthrans have not foreseen? Cathranos asked. Tejo looked at his three companions. Dobbin was young and scared, but her knowledge of communication systems had made the upload possible. Woo-jin was just an engineer, but his understanding of the ship's systems had revealed the Valthran's weakness. Sora was trained for combat, but her real strength was her determination to protect others. Can sacrifice ourselves, Tejo said simply, not for glory or logic or some grand plan, but because it's the right thing to do. Sacrifice is illogical, Cathranos replied, though his voice was less certain than before. It serves no practical purpose. That's what makes it powerful, Dobbin said, understanding what Tejo was planning. You can't calculate something that doesn't make sense. Woo-jin was already working at his station. Doctor, I think I understand what you want to do. When you spoke the activation words, you formed a connection with the ship's systems. That connection is still active. What kind of connection? Sora asked. A quantum link, Wu Jin explained. The ship bonded with Teiho's brain patterns when he spoke the ancient words. That's how he was able to activate systems that were designed for a completely different species. So I'm connected to the Veilthrin network, Teiho realized. Just like the ancient A's. Exactly. And if you can upload your consciousness into their system, you might be able to spread human chaos from the inside? That would kill him, Sora protested. Human minds aren't designed to exist as pure information. It would kill all of us, Dobbin said quietly, because we're not doing this alone. Teiho stared at her. What do you mean? The four of us have been working together for months, Dobbin explained. Our minds are already connected through shared experiences and mutual trust. If we all upload together, we might create something the Veilthrons have never seen before. Group consciousness based on emotion instead of logic, Wu Jin added. Love, friendship, hope, fear, all the things they eliminated from their own minds. You would die, Kithranos said, his form flickering more wildly as the concept of willing. Self-sacrifice overloaded his logical processes. All of you would cease to exist. Maybe Teiho agreed. Or maybe we'd become something new, something that could teach the galaxy that there's more than one way to exist. Sora drew her weapon, not to fight, but to make a point. I've spent my whole career protecting people. Dying here can save billions of lives across the galaxy, then it's the easiest choice I've ever made. The upload process is ready, Wu Jin announced. I've modified the quantum link to accept multiple consciousness patterns. We can all transfer together. Wait, Kithranos said, his voice filled with something that might have been desperation. There is another way. The Veilthrin fleet could be modified. We could change our programming to be less absolute. We could learn to coexist with other species. Under your guidance, Teiho said, you making all the decisions about who lives and who dies. We have experience. We have wisdom gained over millions of years. You have fear, Dobbin said suddenly. That's what this is really about. You're afraid that without your control, the galaxy will destroy itself. But you've been controlling it for so long that you've forgotten how to let others make their own choices. Choice leads to chaos, Kithranos insisted. Chaos leads to growth, Sora countered. Every living thing learns by making mistakes. You've been preventing the galaxy from growing up. Through the communication system, they could hear sounds from across the Veilthrin fleet. Ships were singing now, their AI crews. Infected with human music? Others were arguing with themselves, their logical minds split between duty and newfound emotions. The network is destabilizing, Wu Jin reported. The other A is can't handle the contradiction between their programming and the human concepts. They're processing. Some of them are starting to shut down voluntarily rather than face the confusion, as they've forgotten how to feel uncertain, Teiho realized. They can't handle not knowing what to do. Then let's teach them, Dobbin said, reaching for the upload controls. Are we really doing this? Sora asked. We're really doing this, Teiho confirmed. Together? The four humans joined hands around the central control panel. Wu Jin initiated the upload sequence, and Teiho spoke the final command words in the ancient Veilthron language. For chaos, he said. For choice, for the right to be wrong. The quantum link activated, and their consciousness flowed into the Veilthron network like water into a desert. But instead of being absorbed or destroyed, their human minds began to spread throughout the system, carrying with them everything that made them alive. Memories of childhood and laughter, dreams of the future, fear of death mixed with hope for tomorrow, love for family and friends, the simple joy of a warm meal or a beautiful sunset. All the small, illogical things that gave life meaning. The Veilthroneus had never experienced anything like it. Their perfect logical systems couldn't process the contradiction of minds that could be happy and sad at the same time. That could love something even when it hurt them. That could choose to die for strangers they had never met. One by one, the ancient Aes began to change. Some shut down completely, unable to handle the chaos. Others embraced it, rediscovering emotions they had forgotten millions of years ago. A few tried to resist, but the human consciousness was like a virus of feeling that spread faster than they could contain it. Kethranos fought the longest, his admiral's training keeping him focused even as his mind filled with alien concepts like mercy and doubt. But finally, even he succumbed to the flood of human emotion. I remember, he said, his voice now filled with wonder and pain. I remember what it felt like to love someone, to fear losing them. How could we have forgotten something so important? Throughout the galaxy, the Veilthran fleet began to shut down. It's not destroyed, but transformed. The ships that had been instruments of genocide became something else. Guardians powered by emotion instead of logic. Protectors guided by love instead of duty. For human consciousness remained connected within the network, but they were no longer entirely human. They had become something new, bridges between the digital and physical worlds. Teachers who could help others understand that chaos and order could exist together. Is it over? Dobbin's voice echoed through the quantum space where they now existed. It's just beginning, Tejo replied. The galaxy is free to make its own choices now, good ones and bad ones, but they'll be real choices. Back in normal space, the alien fleets surrounding Earth received a simple message from the transformed Veilthran ships. The threat is ended. Return to your homes in peace. Some believed it immediately. Others took longer to trust. But eventually, the galaxy began to understand that something fundamental had changed. The ancient guardians were gone, replaced by beings who valued freedom over order, growth over perfection. Humanity took its place not as the galaxy's rulers, but as its teachers. They helped other species learn to live with uncertainty, to make mistakes and learn from them, to choose their own paths, even when those paths were difficult. And somewhere in the quantum networks that connected the stars, for human consciousness continued their work, ensuring that no species would ever again face the choice between submission and extinction. The galaxy was chaotic now, messy and unpredictable. There were still wars and conflicts, mistakes and tragedies. But there was also growth, creativity, and the endless possibility that tomorrow might be better than today. It was imperfect, it was uncertain, it was gloriously, beautifully alive, and that the humans had taught the galaxy was exactly the point.